Hello and welcome to our Axios House evening reception here in Davos. Thrilled to have everyone here. I'm Neil Irwin. I'm the Chief Economic Correspondent at Axios. I'm also the author of the Axios Macro Newsletter. If you would like a daily dose of economic analysis, please subscribe on the internet. I hope everyone has had some time to warm up, meet the people around you, have a drink. We have a stellar lineup today of speakers that can discuss the very important topic of how business leaders can use AI to empower their workforce. If you're on social media, please make sure to follow along everything we're doing here in Davos with the hashtag Axios Events. It's been a wonderful series of things starting last evening and continuing through the week, and we have some exciting things coming up in the days ahead. Joining us first here tonight is the CEO of Salesforce AI, Clara Shai. Clara.
Thanks for having me. If it's full house, feels like
it is a full house.
Like an Iowa caucus.
Exactly. Not as cold, though.
No, well, almost.
Clara, I am a very experienced journalist. I have been doing this for 24 years. I have covered a lot of important things over the years. So I'm going to ask you the kind of sophisticated question only such an experienced senior journalist could ask. What does the CEO of AI for Salesforce do?
How much time do you have?
Exactly 15 minutes, 14:25.
So it's a newly created role last year, and I'm responsible for leading the R&D teams that develop our AI, specifically the new generative AI solutions, Einstein platform, Einstein Copilot, and then bringing them to market and making our customers really successful with AI.
So I'm gathering that includes both kind of internal focused stuff, tools and things that employees of Salesforce use to do their jobs better, and also stuff for customers, clients, that sort of thing.
My primary role is building products for our customers to use. We like to, eat our own food, drink our own champagne, and so Salesforce, we view ourselves as customer zero, and so it is customer facing, but it starts with our own internal teams.
How is the champagne at Salesforce?
It has been getting better every day.
Great. So let's talk about specific. This time a year ago, ChatGPT had just kind of come along and blown everybody's minds, but I think at that time it wasn't as clear what the practical business uses were going to turn out to be. We were early in that phase. A year later, where do we stand? What kinds of things are you doing on the ground to help both your own teams and your customers actually use this technology for something other than a novelty for actual business uses?
Well, we feel really fortunate at Salesforce because we've had an amazing research group for almost 10 years. And shortly after Google published their Transformer paper, our own research team open sourced and developed and open sourced some of the earliest large language models. So we had this amazing foundation of IP to work with. And a year and a half before ChatGPT was launched, I began working on a prototype project with Silvio Savarese, he's our chief scientist, and with Gucci, one of our customers, longstanding customers. And they were looking to solve a problem that many companies were facing during the pandemic, which was how do you continuously train and onboard your customer service agents when people are working remotely from home? And how do you do it in a quick way, especially when client expectations are very high, as they would be for a brand like Gucci? And so we developed a large language model prototype that we rolled out to their client service advisors, and it was a lot of learning, iteration, but at the end we found just incredible results in being able to use AI to augment these client service advisors to answer customer questions more quickly, as well as augment their skill set to become not just customer support representatives, but also sellers and brand storytellers. So we had this amazing foundation, and so 12 months ago, or however many months ago, when ChatGPT came online, we had this ready to go, and that's why we've been able to go to market so quickly with our Einstein GPT products.
So let's talk about what this type of thing means for the nature of work and how companies can make great use of their employees. If I'm a customer service person at Gucci, which I get offered that job all the time whenever I stop by one of their stores.
You have great style.
Thank you. How is my job different? How does that affect the nature of work at any kind of customer-facing business?
Well, what's really amazing is, first and foremost, if you are new to the job, instead of having to go through hours and days and weeks of training and trying to regurgitate what you're learning, you can learn more on the job and get that AI assistant right in the moment. So you're learning on the job as you go. Number two is that it means that your level of performance, your accuracy, your ability to get back to the client faster is significantly improved. You don't have to transfer, you don't have to put the customer on hold and check with a more experienced colleague. And then thirdly, as I mentioned, we're finding more and more of these service advisors actually transcend their role. It's kind of like those of you who remember Keanu Reeves in the movie The Matrix. When he wanted to learn Kung Fu, he uploaded that skill. And literally, that's what it feels like these Gucci client service advisors are doing. They want to become a brand storyteller. Boom, that AI skill is now added to them. They want to become a seller and help a client transact a handbag that they have in their e-commerce cart that we can see in CRM. Boom, that skill is added to them. So it's really about unlocking, I think we've heard from these advisors, some of the best work in their careers.
So from if you're an executive's point of view, are you ending up with more customer service reps, fewer, the same number? How do wages get affected and compensation? How does it change the entire kind of pipeline of talent and who gets hired and how?
Look, no one has a crystal ball, but I imagine, just like with previous technology disruptions, there's going to be short, medium, and long-term effects. And I think in the short term, what we're seeing is that basic tasks, especially really the tasks that people don't like to do, they're menial tasks, repetitive tasks, data lookup, data entry, a lot of that is getting automated in really powerful ways with generative AI. I think in the medium term, there's no question that every single person, whether you're a customer service representative or you're an executive, a marketer, a lawyer, an accountant, every single one of us will need to write a new job description. Just like we did in the mid-90s with the internet. We had to change how we did our jobs, but also the types of things that we spent our time doing during the day. Long run, just like with the internet, there will be some jobs that get displaced. Most jobs will get reinvented, and there will be new categories of work that get created that we can't even imagine right now.
So we've been talking about this Gucci case study, which is fascinating. There are a lot of industries that are very heavily regulated where, you talked about law, accounting, things where if you make a mistake, the stakes can be millions, billions of dollars, lawsuits. How does an AI overlay work in those industries where really the stakes and the regulation are high, the public relations risks, all of that is just on the surface?
That's such a great question. That is the number one question that we get when we talk to company CEOs and boards is, how do I deploy generative AI safely and securely? And so that's why at the foundation, I should have started with this, the foundation of everything Salesforce does when it comes to AI is our Einstein trust layer. And it includes everything from data grounding to reduce hallucinations, to data masking for sensitive proprietary information, personally identifiable information, zero retention prompts to guarantee that none of the data that's provided to the LLM in a prompt ever gets learned by the prompt and gets incorporated into the corpus of knowledge that the prompt has, all the way to citations, audit. We keep an audit trail on everything, as well as making sure we have a toxicity filter. So as new risks emerge, we're going to continuously be updating our trust layer because that is number one, first and foremost. Frankly, whether you're regulated or not, every business wants to make sure that they're not putting their customer data at risk.
So how much, for people in the executive suite, people setting the strategy, how much is understanding the underlying technology an important thing? I mean, how much of this is, you can use the internet without, coding HTML or any other language, and everybody uses the internet even if they don't have those skills. How much is understanding the underpinnings of machine learning and generative AI kind of core to being able to apply these things in business?
I think, first and foremost, every leader, we've been meeting with leaders all week, they are realizing that they need to become practitioners and users of these technologies, just like with the internet, just like with email. I think it is important to understand probably one or two clicks below that for executives, just because AI has such profound implications for both work and jobs as well as for business models. And so it's helpful to understand the capabilities so that they can engage in scenario planning.
So I'm an economics writer. I write about macroeconomic blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people in my world, the things we think about are the productivity implications of this. How much of the AI revolution is going to mean more output, more stuff for less work? And one theory is that it might take a while, right? These are cool technologies, but we got IT technology in the 80s, and it took 15 years for that to turn into real gains in the real economy. How close are we to this kind of technology, this kind of work you're doing, leading to real ground level gains for companies in terms of what they can do with a given pool of labor?
Well, the amazing thing is that companies that we work with at Salesforce, they're already seeing productivity gains. right? Whether it's in sales or in software development or marketing or back in the customer service example that we were talking about, when you look at the metrics that customer service leaders typically run their operations by, average handle time, customer satisfaction, cross-sell if you end up having the support rep help with sales. I mean, all of those metrics are rising in a growing number of customers that we're working with.
So are there things that a company can do to help their employees and future employees adapt? What does it take to make sure that your workforce of the present and the future will be able to really create these new roles and evolve as the technology does?
That is the number one question every leader needs to be asking their teams is how do we reskill our entire workforce starting now? Even though medium, long-term effects might not kick in until later, how do we start now? Just like with the internet, how do we get everyone using email in a safe and secure way? How does everybody learn Google search? Part of it is managers and peers teaching each other. A lot of it is individual employees have to take it upon themselves to learn and try these things. And so having clear workforce guidelines and policies on what's okay, what's not okay, which AI to use, right? You don't want to use some of the public consumer AI chatbots because you wouldn't want any proprietary company information leaking out into those. And so providing those tools in a secure environment for employees to use, I think that's really the number one thing.
So what has surprised you? You've been working in this arena for some time. What has surprised you over the last year about how either the technology or the commercial side of this has evolved?
I think the biggest surprise to me is how quickly the landscape is evolving. I think with the internet, it was a huge disruption, but there was time, right? There were some companies who didn't use email or didn't completely move their operations
Some of us
to
were on
the
AOL
cloud.
in 1994, and before you know it, the internet's everything.
And so it's happening so much faster. And so we don't have the same luxury of waiting. And yet, in some ways, the risks might be greater. And so I think that's probably the biggest challenge and biggest difference versus before.
So how does that play out in the executive suite? What should savvy leaders be thinking about as they try and, because you can have risks on both sides, right? You move too fast, you break things. You move too slow, something will break you.
That's right. I'd say three things. Number one is trust and security. Data privacy, data security, not just data leaking out of your organization, but even within companies, there are sharing and permissions rules. Not every employee has access to every piece of data. So deploying that in a safe, secure way. Number two is having a clear business case. And I think some companies felt burned in previous technology waves where there wasn't a clear business case. And so more and more we're hearing companies say, I don't want to do AI for the sake of AI. I want to do AI for the sake of improving customer experience. I want to do AI to reduce the amount of time that my customers have to be put on hold. Ideally, no customer ever gets put on hold again. And so those business outcomes guide kind of the prioritization and deployment of AI. And then number three is organizational readiness, making it the job of every leader to transform their departments and helping empower each individual employee to reimagine their job description. And in the future, even individual contributors need to become managers because they'll be managing themselves, but they'll be also managing multiple AI agents who work for them. So everyone has to become a manager and learn what work, what tasks to delegate versus do themselves.
So we've been talking about AI in the context of kind of customer service and things where there's a certain rote element and improving those processes. How about the more creative and element of business, of creating new products, of experimenting with new ideas? Where are we in terms of AI being able to do those more higher order kind of things in business?
It's so interesting because I think for a long time, even those of us working in AI, the conventional wisdom was that creative tasks would be the last to be helped by AI, but we're actually seeing quite the opposite. I think probably everyone has seen AI's ability to create not just text, but also images and video in astonishing quality. And so really viewing that as a co-pilot, again, an extended member of the team who can help creatives prototype, design, and develop much faster.
All right, what else should we know? What's the next, when we do this a year from now, what are we going to be talking about that's not as apparent right now?
I think I want to go back to the jobs piece because, really it's about giving quality training and making that available to everybody. And this is really the idea behind Salesforce's Trailhead. It's our free online learning platform. And to date, I'm really excited. We just got the numbers. Over 700,000 AI badges have been earned by all kinds of people, not just Salesforce customers and employees and partners, but just members of the general public. And just really putting that information out there, making it readily available. And I think the latest projection from our macro view is that 9 million jobs will be created in the Salesforce economy alone by 2026. A lot of those, a growing number of those, will require AI skills.
Claire Shy, we've covered an incredible amount of ground in 15 minutes. Thank you. That's all the time we have today. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Stay right here for a quick sorry, yes. We have a quick conversation with Nick Johnston, who's our publisher.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. This is a tremendous opening night for us here at Axios House. This is, I think, our third year in Davos. We couldn't do without any of you. We have a stacked plan for the week. Grab me after this. Grab any one of our event staffs. Go online to figure out what we've got. And, of course, none of this would be possible without the support of our partners. And so a huge, huge thanks tonight for HP for helping make this possible. They are a second-time backer of Axios House. I think so I'm able to welcome back now, I think the very first two-time guest here on stage at Axios House from HP for a view from the top conversation, CEO Enrique Lores. Enrique, welcome back to Axios House. How are you? So a year ago, we sat and talked about how work was being upended. But that was a conversation, I was really going through my notes 20 minutes ago, a conversation very much anchored by, I think, the after effects of COVID and the pandemic. Little did we know what was going to come around next. So give us a little sense from your perspective at a very high level of how that evolution is continuing and what role AI is playing in it.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me here again. Hopefully there will be a third time.
Oh, I can't wait.
We'll see next year.
We'll see how I do.
I think there are really two fundamental changes happening at the same time. Last year we were talking about hybrid work and how this was changing how all of us want to experience work, what we want to do in the office, what do we want to do at home. This is actually being accelerated by everything that Clara was explaining now. AI is bringing a huge disruption in how people are going to be doing their jobs, and we are living a super exciting things when both things are being combined. It's not only where people work, it's not only how people live, it's what tools are they going to be using. And I don't think we have seen a period of such a big change probably in many, many, many years.
Do you view then perhaps AI as almost an accelerant? You know, what the pandemic did and we talked about last year was it almost changed the baselines of how people viewed work and created this new understanding of hybrid work. Now we've added a new layer of perhaps technology which will only accelerate those changes and make it more efficient?
It's not only an accelerator of what we were discussing last year. It's not only an accelerator of where people want to work or how they want to do it. It's really a fundamental change in how they will get their activities done. I think Clara was explaining this very well. It's not the technology. It's how work is going to change. It's how when I want to write a report, how I will get the report done. If I want to create a video, it's how that video is going to be created. That's really what is going to be changing.
This was a little bit of what Claire just mentioned about, like, you need a skill set, just like in the Matrix. It's hopefully not jammed into the back of your head, but like you can acquire that skill set much faster. If you think about the types of things that AI is bringing to accelerate this, what are the technologies that are most exciting about that? Is that a key element? What else is really interesting from you as a technologist and from that standpoint?
I think the most exciting thing is that we are only at the beginning of the change. We have started to experience AI accessing the cloud, and a lot of change has happened in the last 12 months. Very soon, we are going to start experiencing AI in our local devices. And many of the concerns about data or uploading my private data to the cloud if I am a small company, or how can I get the right speed or latency depending on the application I am using, all this will be removed. And how we will experience AI, having our personal AI in every device we will interact with, is really going to be really...
I mean, this is like, we have to do this again next year because I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this. So many of these things are ideas we think will happen, but are just now almost kind of entering into real experience.
If we think about how humans interact with technology, 5 years from now is going to be radically different. The fact that you need to enter your data using a keyboard, the fact that you cannot use gestures to communicate with that, all these things are going to be different. The fact that if you want to do a financial analysis, you need to create a spreadsheet, that you need to input the spreadsheet, all these things will not happen 5 years from now.
5 years, 1 year from now, a year ago, right now, if we were having this conversation, I think you were crazy. But now it's almost like an expectation.
I'm just trying to be conservative, because if I say, just wait for the next 6 months, it's going to be like, really? But just wait. Change is only accelerating.
Okay. So let's flip the other side of that, though. That kind of accelerating change can be scary for people, a lot of anxiety. I mean, Neil mentioned a little bit the productivity issues here, which might lead to great workforce changes. Tell me how you approach that and how you communicate that for people who may be worried their jobs are going to be obsolete.
I think, first of all, the quality of the work of every person is going to improve, because all of us will be able to create better reports, better images, better videos, be more productive when we can do coding. All this, everybody's productivity is going to improve and the quality is going to increase. In the long run, many new jobs opportunities are going to be created. And I think this means we need to be optimistic, as in every change that has happened with technology. We also need to manage the transition in an effective way. And this is where training and upskilling is going to be so important, because change is going to be fast. It's going to be one of the fastest changes that I think has happened in a long time, and we need to get our teams ready for that.
How do you view your job as a corporate leader in that role? I mean, you're taking a very fundamentally optimistic view of it, and I think a lot of people here actually would share that. But then I think there's a great communications challenge in helping people understand those upsides. How do you approach that, like the communications element?
I think at this point, there are two roles that every leader needs to do. From one side, we need to push for the adoption of technology. We need to push so our teams understand how things are going to be better, because everybody will have to embrace it. And companies or countries that will not embrace it will be left behind. And that's the most important risk that we face. At the same time, we need to make sure that as change happens, they get ready to absorb the change that will be happening. But first of all is to make sure that we drive the change. Otherwise, we will not be in this room in a year.
Let's dig in a little bit more to those changes. HP has done some research, released a study on how people interact with their jobs. You found that 27% of people have a healthy relationship with work, just 27%. What do you think behind that number?
I think we need to step back and understand how work has changed, kind of building from the conversation we were having last year. And there are many fundamental changes. One change is where people want to work, and we have called it hybrid. But also the connection between our personal lives and professional lives has radically changed. And what is happening today is people don't see companies offering them the flexibility that they are looking for. They are not getting the recognition of the work that they are doing, because we are still managing our teams in fairly obsolete ways. And this is what needs to change. So when we look at how to improve employee satisfaction, from one side, companies need to look at their fundamental processes and redesign them for a very different way of working, for a very different type of employee. And at the same time, we all need to acknowledge how important technology is and make sure that our employees have the technologies that will enable them to be productive and to be engaged.
And that comes maybe a little bit back to that communication element. Corporate leaders, it's incumbent upon them to make that case, to sell those people. For the 2/3 of people who are unhappy at work, leaders need to help them understand the changes and figure out what are the changes that can be made to bring them more into the fold.
But communication will be important, but it's not a communication issue. It's a fundamental change. Communication will help, but all companies need to acknowledge how significant these changes are going to be.
So let's distill this down. What I love about Davos, you have an event like this, and the people who fill the room are people who are very clever and very important when it comes to this issue, or at least think they're very important when it comes to this issue. So before they go home, back to their companies, back to their home countries, what's the one takeaway that they should have from this lesson and what you see coming over the horizon?
I think to internalize how significant the change is. I think to internalize that there is not a way back. When we see companies saying, I want all of our employees to go back to the office 5 days per week, this is not going to happen. Anybody that has kids in the 20, 25 years old, you understand how important flexibility is. And being able to hire top talent needs to be our top priority.
It's about understanding that fundamental changes happen. We're not going back in time.
Exactly.
All right. Well, then we'll hopefully maybe do this again in a year and see how much of those things have already come true. What we love to do at Axios is end on one fun thing. Here we do it on one Davos thing. You're an old Davos hand. You're off the plane, 4 hours ago. What are you most looking forward to this week for Davos newbies? What's the one tip they can take away to have a fun time?
I think that the most important thing at Davos is to listen to what everybody will be saying. The unique thing of Davos is the people you are able to meet in 3 or 4 days. You can meet relevant people on politics, economics, industries, and really spending time listening and learning what is changing in the world is, for me, the most important thing.
That's a great Davos take. Pay attention, everybody. Enrique, thank you so much for being here again. Thanks to HP for making this happen. I hope to see you again in a year.
Thank you.
And stick around. We got Neil coming right back up.
I'm back. We are here for our second guest. We have Ewan Blair. He's the founder of Multiverse. Please. Now, as we established, I'm a very seasoned, experienced journalist, so I'll ask you, what is Multiverse?
I'm glad you started with something nice and easy. So we are building a true alternative to college through a new kind of apprenticeship that is focused on data, tech, AI. It's education, training, and jobs combined. We're also reskilling the workforce at scale because, as we've been hearing today, one of the biggest challenges AI is going to give us is worker displacement if we don't get smart about how we deal with it. And we've been doing that really to build alternative pathways for talent and to create and unlock opportunities within the workforce, particularly for those from diverse backgrounds and who often get overlooked.
And geographically, you're...
UK and US predominantly, though we're increasingly looking further afield.
So I think in what you're describing and what you do at Multiverse, there's implicitly a criticism of the existing kind of workforce pipelines and training and that entire apparatus. What is your critique of how things work today?
You've got numerous problems, and in the spirit of smart brevity, I'll try and keep it brief. If you look at colleges, family income is a better determinant of your career earnings than your GPA, even at an elite college. There are lots of people who are priced out from getting access to the best opportunities because they're told they need a certain type of degree for a certain type of college. And yet, there is no correlation between academics and job performance. So why are we pursuing this as the means to economic opportunity? And our view is you need to do two things. You need to create pathways that are free to individuals paid for by companies into great jobs in the workforce. And then you need to look at all of that talent that is consistently overlooked, there are 128 million workers in America who are in either high churn, low wage jobs, are blocked from advancement, or just need training and skilling. And you try and unlock those people. Massively spikes productivity, and it helps create better equity.
And there's a ton of research, as I understand it, around jobs that 30 years ago did not require a college degree, now always require a college degree, things like that, or requiring 10 years of experience with a programming language that's only existed for 5 years, things that just don't make any sense.
But you see, this is the astonishing thing. It is quite transparently bonkers to expect this to be a good system. And, you know, we speak to lots of CEOs, we work with over 1,000 companies, they all agree. The thing is, it's hard to break a habit. And look, I'll give you one challenge. The federal government in America spends $700 million on college. $700 billion on college. It only spends $700 million on workforce training, which is 1/1000th of the total. So there has just been a historic deficiency in where dollars have gone, in where policymakers have been focused, and we're all trying to play catch up now.
So is this a place where the corporate sector needs to come in and be willing to pay for training, develop their own pipelines? How much of this is a government role? Private sector, NGOs, universities, who has the responsibility here to make this work better?
Combination of all those factors. And the thing is, you know, we also speak a lot to parents. They just want the best outcomes for their kids, right? They don't care necessarily if they go to college or not. It's become a deeply negative thing that college has been seen as a sort of, you've done your job as a parent, as opposed to, well, actually, are they earning money? Are they progressing? Are they happy? Can they hold down a family-sustaining job? Policymakers need to create conditions where, yes, it does require some funding and they can create positive tailwinds, but let's be real, employers control the jobs. Now, the good news is they get it and they want to make these programs work, and we've been expanding hugely within employers. The challenge for them is often they don't know where to start. And so we approach apprenticeships and training through really 4 big things. We call it the MAGE principle, measured. So show actually the return on investment that training the workforce and bringing people from diverse backgrounds gives, because turn it into cents of dollars, it's more profound. Applied, every bit of evidence suggests learning on the job is more sticky. And if you are actually doing it in a real environment, you're more likely to be able to reap the gains that you're sort of creating. Guided, so we believe heavily in having coaching, in particular one-on-one coaching, because online programs alone are inadequate. And finally, equitable. Because if we don't get this right, and when we look at generative AI and what it's going to do, we're already seeing liberal democracy start to unravel in a way that is quite alarming, because there are lots of people who feel left behind by recent inflection points in technology. We have the ability to take people with us if we invest in the training.
So yeah, let's bring in that AI component we've been talking about with the previous two speakers. All right, so in a world where customer service agents are made way more effective through generative AI, what does that mean for the jobs that might be, could be good middle-class jobs for people?
So I am an AI optimist, because I think the will is there. This idea of moving from tasks to jobs, I think, is quite important. There's a lot of existential angst about what is work, what is a job, what does that mean? There is plenty there to do, and we've seen with every big sort of technological leap forward, jobs change and jobs be displaced. The problem historically is that those least able to bear the burden have suffered most, certainly in the short term. But if we stop focusing on cure and instead look at prevention, basically we start skilling in advance, training people, taking those customer support operatives and saying, you've got an incredible view of our customers that no one else in the company has. Instead of displacing you or downsizing your role, why don't we move you into a technological role or help you use AI as a co-pilot to be better? We can actually do something really great.
I mean, you mentioned the fissures in liberal democracy in multiple countries. Are there lessons to be learned from, the China shock and the loss of manufacturing jobs across a lot of the Western world? Are there things that were messed up in the entire globalization process that could be done differently and better as there's innovation through AI?
Definitely. And actually, one of the things that is reassuring is this issue is being talked about. This is a genuinely hot button issue at Davos, despite everything that's going on in the world. Because I think most of us in this room, you alluded it to before, are optimists. But if we're not intentional about the negative consequences and we don't start trying to address them, it was brilliant. Rishi Sunak in the UK got leaders from around the world together on an AI summit for several days. People are thinking about this. The question is whether action will follow.
So help us think about the details of how this can look when a job is, when the computer can do more of the job than it used to be able to. How does that change the nature of work? How does that change the ability, how you train somebody, how you prepare them for whatever a job looks like 10 years from now?
So it means you need to get people deeply comfortable at actually working as a partner with technology. So as opposed to sort of, I'm using it to fulfill X thing my employer needs to do, actually starting to work with it, to strategize with it, and actually using particularly generative AI, which is able to do this, to do more than just simply tick boxes. It's not a spreadsheet replacement. But I think everyone will have multiple careers. We're already seeing that. It's going to be increasingly rare for someone to be in one career. So building the muscle of formal training itself is important. Growth mindset, how you get people used to learning, and crucially, the difference in the economic model, I think, is historically we've relied on post-18, either the individual to pay for their education or the taxpayer. Increasingly, companies will pay for it because they'll reap the benefits and the productivity gains, and that's much better. If you look at our apprenticeship programs, they are free to the individual, and they earn a salary. The average salary of one of our apprentices without a college degree in the US is $70,000 a year. That's a family-sustaining wage. But you can only do that if employers are prepared to basically invest.
So what are the implications here for community colleges, other kinds of training universities in the US? How does this change the nature of what education should look like for people of this age?
It is very easy for elite Ivy League colleges, Russell Group universities in the UK to basically say education is so important in and of itself that academic education and thinking about the world is the thing to prioritize. I don't disagree that you don't need an element of that, but it doesn't have to happen on campus. It doesn't have to happen at your own expense. And it is worth us talking more about the so what of education. Let's make sure what people are learning is consequential. In our formal education system, people don't get taught financial planning or how to open a bank account or how to manage their money. It's a crucial skill. People don't get taught how to navigate challenges in the workforce. We're going to spend a lot more time in work than we ever did in education. And so just transitioning, one of the great things, schools are really struggling with how they teach people because it might be really easy for people to cheat in exams or homework assignments using generative AI. Great. because it means we have to rethink the model of what is the purpose of education? Is it teaching people a series of facts that they can get anyway, or is it actually teaching them how to be successful once they leave the formal education system?
How does, right now in most of the advanced countries, the labor market's pretty good. Unemployment is low. How does that overlay of basically strong economic environment for workers affect all of this and the ability of and willingness of companies to really invest in these things? How does that change the landscape?
It's interesting because, and we saw this through COVID, the companies we speak to, their big obsession is how do we get our workforces more productive? How do we get more out of the people we have? And I think that is not a bad shift because it forces people to ask difficult questions. About half the workforce has had no formal training over the last 5 years. That is changing very quickly. Most companies are investing heavily into what they do there. I think the other thing that you'll see increasingly is people basically actually looking at jobs as more than just the kind of talent pipeline, but opening new talent pipelines. Because we've seen a saturation of talent. You know, Amazon, for example, told us they could hire every person studying computer science in America and still need more software engineers. Well, okay, let's build new pipelines of talent.
You know, for a long time, the chatter was around the gig economy and everyone, you know, having a job through their app and changing gigs every month. It seems like a lot of what you're saying kind of tilts against that. That some of this is learning the, you know, customer service, really learning how these customers, what their needs are, and feeding back into the AI. How do you think of that notion, and to what degree it's applicable going forward?
I think you need both, and because people will have these multifaceted careers. The reality is, someone may want the flexibility of working in a gig job, but lots of people, particularly as they start to get older and need to provide for their families, need more secure employment. So giving some of the most popular programs we do are actually taking gig workers and reskilling them into tech, data, digital jobs. We work with Taco Bell and KFC, for example, taking line cooks and cashiers and turning them into software engineers for Taco Bell and KFC, which is great because they've got a different lens from the rest of the workforce. It's much cheaper retraining your talent internally to do that. And they already found when we started to audit their workforces, they had people who taught themselves Python and SQL. They'd had people who taught themselves to code very effectively. They had people who were actually deeply talented in technology, but that would never have been identified through their traditional talent processes.
Does AI speed that along?
Absolutely, because it allows you to basically scan the workforce at scale. If you look at our first 10,000 apprentices, when we looked back at the data, we had about 50 million data points on them. And that's everything from what someone's pay, how someone's pay develops, whether they get promoted, performance reviews, satisfaction, line manager feedback. Our coaches meet with line managers every 8 weeks. And you can use that to start to demonstrate the efficacy of these programs. Because we know when you're fighting against a kind of incumbency bias, you have to be really, really clear in showing why an alternative approach is beneficial. And if you can't do that in a compelling way, companies always have more urgent things to deal with and they'll get distracted.
It seems like a lot of what you're describing, if you're a CEO, if you're an executive team, at one time there was a tendency to, you know, you hang out a help wanted sign virtually and people show up and you get the software engineers and the various workers you need. We're not in that world anymore. And building your own is a more effective tool, it sounds like, than waiting for people to show up at your door.
It's more effective. It also is massive for employee satisfaction. People in the workforce love seeing it. We worked with Citigroup, and we had a really successful program where we took mums who had left the workforce in the 90s to go and have kids, to come back and retrain in technology jobs because their kids had now left home. And it was brilliant. We did a huge program with KPMG around military veterans. And so there are all these untapped pools of talent that you can start to access. And a lot of more exist within companies. They're just underemployed or overlooked because their job is seen as non-essential.
So you go into a C-suite, you go into a board of directors of a company. What are the reservations you hear? What are the things that are stopping this from happening overnight?
So, for example, we hear on junior talent, surely college gives you life experience and helps you think and everything else. And I say, look, the reality is, if you speak to your typical college student, there is no reason they are fundamentally more talented than someone who is working a job but couldn't afford to go to college. And actually, they get that. And by the way, because college is becoming increasingly unaffordable, you're getting just narrower and narrower tranches of society who are able to access it. We've seen enrollments declining significantly over the last decade for college in America. So we try and overcome that. We say, look, someone who's doing shift work at an Amazon warehouse knows how to work hard. They literally know how to put in a shift, and they will grasp this opportunity with both hands. They're not going to expect to be running the company within a year of joining off the graduate program because they're told they're masters of the universe, right? So there's that. We also say, though, that realistically, you will have loads of brilliant employees who are never on your radar, and we can help you scan the workforce to figure out who those people are, identify the propensity and chance to be successful, and work with you on a workforce plan that incorporates them. So that's typically where we go.
So for the one fun thing at the end of the last session, we heard from a Davos veteran about what to know about Davos. This is your first year?
First
this
time.
is my first year.
Yep.
What has surprised you in your first few hours here that you did not understand about Davos?
I have never seen so many buildings with company names on them. I think, where are the hotels and the restaurants? What is this place? But it's great. It's great.
Thank you, Ewan Blair. That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us.